over the years that I've had this channel, I've had many people recommend that I go on an antipsychotic called clozapine. It usually happens whenever I discuss that even on meds, I still hallucinate sometimes because of my schizoaffective disorder. And for some, that seems like a problem, even though technically it's normal for me and countless others. Because here's the thing with all of these clozapine recommendations, and it's that I know the people that make them mean well. So this video is in no way an attack on those people. But I think I need to address this topic in full just to get all the information out there for everyone. So these are the 3 reasons I'm not on clozapine and don't need to be on it. The first is that my doctor doesn't recommend it. I do what my doctor says, that's how treatment works, and this should be enough to end this story. But I'll keep going. The second reason has to do with some technical stuff, but stick with me, I'll explain everything. Clozapine is not a go-to medication for schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. Rather, it's a go-to medication for treatment-resistant forms of schizophrenia and schizoaffective disorder. In the schizophrenia treatment guidelines published by the American Psychiatric Association, treatment-resistant schizophrenia is defined by the following. The patient's symptoms have shown either no response or suboptimal response to 2 separate antipsychotic medications that are not clozapine, and that those 2 antipsychotic medications were taken for at least 6 weeks at an adequate dosage. In other words, you can't prescribe clozapine immediately. Instead, you have to try 2 other medications and have them both fail first. And what constitutes failure is important too. An antipsychotic fails its trial when the patient has less than a 20% reduction in symptoms during that 6-week period. If that happens twice, then and only then can you think about clozapine. So bringing it back to me, just because I hallucinate a few times a week, even while taking medications, doesn't mean I'm treatment resistant. My schizoaffective disorder actually isn't treatment resistant at all. So to put it plainly, according to the fine print, I am not on clozapine because I don't qualify for it. There's also a few sentences in the guidelines where someone who does respond well to other antipsychotics might still be put on it, but those situations are when the patient still has significant impairments in functioning. I function fine on my meds, so no clozapine for me. The third and final thing is that my current antipsychotic is actually super effective. The reality is that for me, Zyprexa does a really good job at keeping the worst of my psychosis away and then makes what's left manageable. It's a myth that everyone who goes on antipsychotics will experience a 100% reduction in symptoms. It happens for some, yes, but for me, no. If I had to guess, my psychotic symptoms overall have probably been reduced upwards of 90% since I started taking it. And while I do still hear voices and see things sometimes, it's not nearly as bad as it used to be. Far from it, actually. I could not function, I was scared all the time, I didn't know up from down, and I wanted to do some very bad things to myself because of all of those things. So me having conversation with the voices in my head a few times a week and maybe seeing a shadow person once a month, well, that's a major improvement. And honestly, my hallucinations are not all terrible. Most are actually quite helpful and keep me company when I'm alone, so it's okay if they show up sometimes. Plus, one of the biggest things that Zyprexa does for me is that it helps stabilize the mood disorder side of my condition. And oftentimes, that's where the true value of it lies for me, because ever since I started taking it, I haven't had another manic episode. Hypomania, yes. Manic, no. So to tie it all together, I'm not on clozapine because my doctor says no, I don't qualify for it, and my current antipsychotic works great. Now that I've helped you understand clozapine a little bit more and explained why it's not as easy to get on as one might think, it's time for some fun psychiatry facts. The first is that clozapine is the most effective antipsychotic we have. It's basically the sledgehammer of antipsychotic medications, and it will take psychosis and absolutely obliterate it. It's just usually reserved for treatment-resistant forms of psychotic disorders, which is why not everyone who experiences psychosis is on it. It was the first atypical antipsychotic discovered, and it went to market in the United States in 1990 after many trials and tribulations. Those side effects. And people who are on clozapine typically think very highly of it. And because of that, there's better adherence to the medication when compared to other antipsychotics. So I'm not bashing it at all. It's an amazing medication that has improved and saved countless lives. It's just not for me. And that's all I have to say about clozapine. If you want to learn a little bit more about my experience on antipsychotics, check out my take on the brutal reality of what they're like right over here. But other than that, thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.